You and welcome to another math video. Today we are going to be working with multiplying and dividing fractions through word problems. Are you ready? You better be. What do you get when you cross a snail and a porcupine? You get a slow poke. Snails are slow, porcupines are sharp, slow poke. Come on, work through it, people. We're working with word problems today. You got to work through the riddles. All right, lesson target. We're going to work on word problems through division and multiplication and fractions. Okay, so the point of this video is not to teach you how to multiply and divide fractions. The point of this video is to get you to understand how to look at word problems that will end up having division and multiplication using fractions. So if you're struggling with how to multiply and divide fractions, that's a different video. Go check it out. But otherwise, let's get to work. Okay, so I'm going to go over this thing I call being a detective when solving word problems, but I'm going to do it very briefly because I went into this in great depth in the addition and subtraction video. So if you did not get a solid understanding of that or you missed that, go watch that video because what I'm about to do is going to be a quick review, okay? But here we go. So solving word problems is like breaking down the problems being a detective. So we want to think about word problems like clues, okay? Or like crime scenes. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is take a complex crime scene and make it simpler. And how do we do that? We look at this one and say, here's our complex crime scene. There are 2.5 sub sandwiches at the party. 5 kids want to each get an equal share of the sandwiches. How much does each kid get? So that's the complex crime scene with all kinds of details and words and whatnot. Let's make it simpler. A party had some sub sandwiches. Some kids want to share the sub. How much does each kid get? Okay, so I take the numbers out, make it simpler, and see if it kind of helps just my brain think through like, oh, I bet you I'm multiplying or I bet you I'm dividing. And if it doesn't, maybe the next step will. Next step says we take our simpler crime scene and we start thinking about looking for clues like this one. When we look at the crime scene, it says sub kids want to share a sub. So we know that there's subs out there and these kids want to share them. Share sounds like a pretty good buzzword. And what crime to solve? Well, our end goal is how much does each kid get? Of the subs they have, how much does each kid get? Again, just leading us towards understanding this word problem. The second one says identify clues that will help you lead you down the path. So what we will do is we're going to circle any numbers and we are going to underline any keywords or buzzwords that will make us think about, should I be multiplying, dividing, adding, or subtracting? So for this one, we don't have the numbers in it, but we would look at it and say, are there any buzzwords that we would underline and we would circle any numbers? But when it comes to buzzwords for multiplication and division, because that's what we're working on, multiplication, you could look for words like the product, you could word like each. That's also a good buzzword for division as well, though. So each you'll see shows up in both, all right? It shows up here and it shows up here. Per, okay, of is like one of those words that almost always means multiplication. So really pay attention to that guy. Twice, that means we're doubling something. Oh, there's double, tripled. If you see the word times, all of those will kind of tell us we're probably going to be multiplying. Quotient, okay, but that's the answer to a division problem. We're going to cut into, which means we're going to cut something into parts. We're going to broken into. We're going to share equally every one of them. If we're going to divide it or divided by, we're going to divide equally or we're going to half it. So the big clue is when you're thinking about your problem. So as you're identifying, this is definitely going to be something that's going to be multiplying or dividing. If your answer is heading towards a direction of getting bigger, all right, if it's going bigger, you're multiplying. But if it's going to be smaller, you are dividing. So that kind of helps you as well. All right, so we go to the next thing. Great detectives take all the clues and design a roadmap. So that's simply just start drawing out a plan. A roadmap means I'm going to start here at my house. I'm going to end up at Disney World. In this case, I'm going to start with something and I'm going to end up with my answer or solving the case. So here's what we do. We kind of look at this and let's go do step 2 real quick. Step 2 said to identify all the numbers. So we have 2.5 and we have 5. Okay. And then it said go through and look for buzzwords. Okay. So are there any buzzwords? There are 2.5 sub sandwiches at the party. 5 kids want to each get. So we're gonna, each kid's getting an equal share, holy cow, of the sandwiches. How much does each kid get? So it's kind of telling us, we know in our simpler version of, there were some sub sandwiches. How many of them? There were 2.5. And each kid, there are 5 kids, each kid wants wants the same share. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, here's a kid, here's a kid, here's a kid, here's a kid, and here's a kid. And each one of them wants a share of those 2.5 subs. Okay, so we have something, we're breaking it into equal parts. That screams a certain operation. It doesn't scream addition, it doesn't scream subtraction or multiplication, it screams division. Okay, so what we started with, equal parts, and each one of these is going to be our answer. Okay, so now we go to the next part, which is solve it. So we take what we had. We have, our problem says we have 2.5 sub sandwiches. And we're going to divide it equally between the 5 kids. So then we go into, how do I solve dividing fractions? Well, we turn them into improper fractions. So 2.5 is 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 on top is 5. So I have 5 halves. And I'm going to divide that by 5. How do we show a whole number as a fraction? We simply put the 5 wholes over top of 1. And then we go into our handy little phrase when it comes to fractions, which is keep. So we keep this the same way. We switch division into multiplication, and we flip. We flip this guy over 1 over 5. And then we go to our secret simplifier. It's the diagonal simplifier. Can we simplify this at all? Well, we look diagonally. Can 5 and 5 be simplified? Absolutely. They can be simplified to 1 because 5 and 5 will go into both of those. And over here we have 1 and half. 1 and half, can they be simplified? So here, can those be simplified? No. So now we have 1 times 1 equals 1. And then we have 2 times 1 equals 2. So each kid is getting a half a sub. And that makes sense if you think about it. If I have a half and a half, that's a sub. If I have a half and a half, that's another sub. So that's 2 wholes. And I have a half left over. That gives me my 2.5 subs. All right, there you go. So let's try a couple cases. All right, so Lisa has 1/3 of an hour to read and watch television. She wants to split her time equally between the 2 activities. Okay, so let's simplify the case. Okay, so we say Lisa has 1/3 of an hour to read and watch the television. Well, if she has 1/3 of an hour, what do we do with that? Well, Lisa has some time to read and watch television. She wants to split it equally. There we go. So she has, that's our simple version. She has some time to read and watch television. She wants to do the same amount for each one. Okay, pretty cool. So let's see what that means. So, whoops, I'm sorry. I got to go solve that guy. So then the next thing is identify the clue. She has 1/3 of an hour and she wants to split her time between the 2 activities. Okay. And what are some buzzwords? Has a 1/3 of an hour to read and watch television. She wants to split her time between and equally between the 2 activities. So let's draw a roadmap. Okay, she has 1/3 of an hour. Okay, she wants to split it between 2 activities, and split kind of tells us that it's division. So now we can say, let's go ahead and solve our problem. We have 1/3 split into 2. All right, well, 2 can be written as 2 over 1. All right, that's how we break that into a fraction. And then we look diagonally. Can we do anything diagonally? Okay. And if we can, we want to simplify it. 1 over 1, can't simplify, that's fine. 2 over 3, that's already simplified. Fine. So now we just do our little next trick, which is keep, switch, and flip. So let's keep, switch, and flip. 1/3, let's keep it. Let's turn that division into multiplication. Okay. And then let's flip over our final fraction into 1/2. What's 1 times 1? It equals 1. What's 3 times 2? It equals 6. So Lisa is going to read for 1/6 of an hour, and then she's going to watch television for 1/6 of an hour. We have solved that case, okay? And next up, let's try one more. At the art class, Reese made a Lego house that was 4.5 inches tall, okay? Reese made a Lego house that was 4.5 inches tall. He also made a clay statue that was 2.5 times taller. How tall was the clay statue? Okay, so let's make it simpler. Okay, the first thing we do is say, Reese made a Lego house, then he made a clay statue, and it was taller. How tall is the clay statue? Okay, Well, now let's start thinking about identifying clues. So we can identify that here's a number 4.5 and here's 2.5. Okay, and now we're looking for buzzwords. And this one, the buzzwords are gonna really help us kind of narrow down where we're going. Okay, at the art class, Reese made a Lego house that was 4.5 inches tall. He also made a clay statue that was 2.5 times taller. Okay, how tall was the clay statue? So we're trying to find out how tall this clay statue is, and we now know that it's 2.5 times taller. So let's draw a roadmap. He drew the Lego house was 4.5 inches tall. The thing that we're doing is 2.5 times taller. Okay, so it's taller than that, 2.5 times that. So it's going to take this, it's going to make one of them, it's going to make another one of them, and then it's going to make half of another one. So it's going to be 2.5 times taller. Now notice these sketches aren't pretty. They don't need to be. They're just kind of helping you think through. And when we think about our buzzwords, we think times taller. That's telling us to multiply. Okay, because we want to take this and find out how one of them, two of them, and then another half of them, how tall would that be? Okay, so now we know what we're trying to solve. All right, so we go ahead and do that. What's 4.5 times 2.5? Because that's going to give us how tall our clay statue is. Well, let's go ahead and turn them into mixed numbers. What's 4 times 2? It's 8, plus our numerator is 9, so we have 9 halves, times, what's 2 times 2? It's 4, plus our numerator is 5. We have 5 halves. And we look at this and we say, can we simplify diagonally? 9 and 2. Those will not simplify because 2 will not go into 9. And 2 and 5, same thing, will not simplify. So now we just simply go ahead and multiply across. What is 9 times 5? It equals 45. And what is 2 times 2? That equals 4. And now we're going to figure out how tall it is by turning it into a mixed number. Okay, how many times will 4 go into 45? Well, 4 groups of 10 will give me 40. So if I add another 4 to it, in other words, 4 groups 11 gives me 44. So 11 groups of 4 gives me 44, which means I have one of the numerators left, 1, and I keep my denominator. Okay, so how tall is Reese's new fraction or new clay statue? It's 11 1/4 inches tall because that's 2.5 times taller than that. Break them down. Set up your case. So make your crime scene simpler. Look for some clues, circle and underline them, draw a roadmap, and then get to work solving the case. All right, I think you guys are ready to rock and roll. Let's see. I gotta come up with a new joke for you guys. How about, why did the raccoon cross the road twice? Because he was a double crosser. They always look like bandits, don't they?